Taylor Swift just announced that 1989 TV is coming October 27th with 5 vault tracks, calling them insane and saying, "I can't believe they were ever left behind." She also called this her favorite re-recording, and it's arguably the most anticipated. Although I'm personally still most excited about Reputation because its vault is so mysterious. Now that we know this album is coming, I'm gonna break down all of the lore you need if you're a new fan or a fan wanting to recap so that you know what all of these songs are about, what was going on in Taylor's life at the time, and most importantly, what kind of subject matter we can expect in the vault tracks. Firstly, the original version of 1989 has 16 tracks, 13 from the standard edition and 3 deluxe. She's told us that there will be 5 vault tracks, so there will be at least 21 songs on 1989 TV, but most of us expected 3 more. And those would be the Bad Blood remix featuring Kendrick Lamar, Sweeter Than Fiction, and This Is What You Came For. The Bad Blood remix is the more popular version of the song. It's the version from the music video, and we know that Kendrick attended Taylor's party at Electric Lady Studios in May this year, so we know they've been hanging out. Sweeter Than Fiction was a soundtrack song for the movie One Chance, which released in 2013. At the time, I think most people expected the song to be on Red. It's literally like a perfect mixture of Red and 1989. As for This Is What You Came For, I'm sure you all know the story. Taylor wrote the song and gave it to her then boyfriend Calvin Harris, who recorded it with Rihanna. It was initially done under a pseudonym, but after their breakup, Taylor revealed that she wrote the song and did backing vocals for the final track. She has since performed an acoustic version of it a few times, so it was pretty reasonable to expect that too. However, Taylor's website is saying that there are only 21 tracks, which implies none of these 3 songs will appear. Taylor hasn't confirmed this directly yet, but that's what seems to be the case. It is possible that she will release these 3 songs as a droplet, like she did with the 4-song droplet back in March. Unlike some other albums, there aren't any leaks from 1989, so we really don't have a clue about what the vault tracks might be. There have been rumors about a title track, but I don't think there's anything to back that up. And there has also been speculation about the possibility of a Harry Styles feature, which would be so iconic, but I think it's unlikely, although there will probably be at least one feature in the vault. Okay, so since I first recorded this, there may have been a leak of the vault track titles. It's still unconfirmed as of the time I'm making this video, but you should know about that. Either way, it doesn't affect the lore or the rest of this video. Now, onto the lore. Taylor's life around 1989 was pretty hectic. It was released in 2014, but it was written during the aftermath of Red, following Red failing to win Album of the Year at the Grammys. Taylor said she decided to make a fully pop, cohesive album, which ended up being 1989, which marked her full transition from country to pop. It was also an uncertain time in her personal life, with her moving to New York, having some highly publicized relationships, becoming the biggest pop star in the world, and allegedly this was also the time that relations between her and Scott Borchetta started to break down, specifically because he was unhappy about her making a synth pop album. If you're younger, I think it's hard to explain just how much of a cultural moment the 1989 era was. Taylor was inescapable. Everyone was talking about her and her love life and her relationships and her girl squad friend group and her iconic 4th of July parties, leading up to her cancellation in 2016, which I also want to make a video about once Reputation is announced. And the reason all of this stuff is relevant to the lore of 1989 is because Taylor hasn't exactly stuck to the ethos of only including vault tracks that were created in the lead up to an album's release. She has included songs that were created after an album, such as the Fearless Vault, which included Mr. Perfectly Fine, a song written after Fearless's release. So all of this stuff could be discussed in the 5 vault tracks. For the lore, I will focus on 8 key areas, and those are New York, Harry Styles, Alexander Skarsgård, Calvin Harris, Karlie Kloss, the Girl Squad, Katy Perry, and her reputation. Obviously, New York is the basis for 1989's opening track and a lot of its aesthetic. She moved from Nashville to New York in early 2014, around March, while she was working on 1989. And obviously, this marks not just the massive change in her personal life, but also symbolizes her transition from country artist to pop star, which was shown by the drastic change in her fashion, her hair, and also her sound. At the time, she said, "I approached moving there with such wide-eyed optimism, and sort of saw it as a place of endless potential and possibilities." New York was a huge influence over Taylor at the time. She wrote about it extensively, and it played a huge role in her becoming the world's biggest pop star at the time, since she was heavily involved in the celebrity scene there. And she has continued to sing about New York since, and it has become ubiquitous with her brand. Obviously, another track like Welcome to New York is unlikely, but there will probably be references to the city in the vault. Her relationship with Harry Styles is one of her most publicized and controversial relationships, I guess. A lot of people accuse them of being a PR relationship, and some people have accused them of being fake for other reasons. They met in March 2012 at the Kids' Choice Awards. At the time, Harry was still in One Direction, and they had signed a record deal with Columbia Records only 4 months earlier. And then in February, 1 month before the Kids' Choice Awards, One Direction first went to the US on a huge promotion spree. Firstly, they were the opening act for Big Time Rush, which was later changed to a 50-50 show because One Direction were so popular, and they were doing a ton of promotional stuff to make One Direction a success in the US, including releasing their first single, What Makes You Beautiful, which was previously only released in Europe. Taylor had just finished the Speak Now tour and was still known as a country artist, but was preparing to somewhat transition into pop with Red later that year. Nothing really happened between them for a while. They were both dating other people. But in October, Taylor and Harry started dating right before the release of Red and One Direction's second album, Take Me Home. And this is partly why people suspect that this was just a PR relationship. They started dating right before their albums released. Plus, Taylor was trying to make it as a pop star. Plus, Harry was trying to make it in the US. I've never gotten too into the conspiracies around them, so I don't really know if this relationship was entirely real or entirely fake, or maybe started as PR, but then they genuinely liked each other. But I think it's worth noting that Harry did have a reputation as a womanizer at this point, which was a bit of a problem for One Direction's management, who wanted them to be the sweetest, most wholesome, family-friendly boy band ever. And it does kind of make sense that they would match him up with Taylor, who was still America's sweetheart lil country girl at the time. While they were together, Harry and Taylor became a huge cultural moment, known as Haylor.
Love is in the air, and Harry Styles and Taylor Swift.
How many Taylor Swift lyrics are about Harry Styles?
Nothing is off limits, including talking about T Swift. His highly publicized romance with superstar Taylor Swift.
They were heavily paparazzied and discussed by the general public, and all the public attention, fan attention, and press attention is something Taylor frequently references in songs about Harry. In December, Taylor and Harry went on their iconic date in Central Park. They recreated the Dirty Dancing lift. They met each other's parents, they publicly kissed in Times Square for New Year's Eve. And most famously, they got into a snowmobile accident, which left Harry needing stitches, which would later form the lyrics to the bridge of Out of the Woods, and also started a conspiracy theory that Taylor and Harry committed vehicular manslaughter with the snowmobile due to Taylor's many lyrics seeming to hint that Harry can't drive. They broke up in early 2013. It's widely speculated that the split happened when they were on vacation in the British Virgin Islands. A photo of Taylor looking somber was taken, and fans thought this picture was from the day of the breakup. Taylor later said she picked the blue Out of the Woods dress based on the one in this picture, which kinda confirmed that theory. And also later that night, Harry went partying with Richard Branson because he was clearly devastated. A month after their breakup, Taylor used an English accent while performing at the Grammys mocking one of her exes, and Harry was her only British ex at the time.
So he calls me up and he's like, I still love you, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm busy opening up the Grammys.
Also in August 2013, she said this at the VMAs.
I also want to thank the person who inspired this song, who knows exactly who he is, because now I got one of these.
It was widely speculated that this was a dig at Harry, especially because the camera cuts to him, but all of the timeline seemed to point at, I knew you were trouble being about John Mayer. In style, Taylor references them being on and off again. So some people think there might have been something going on secretly between them during 2013 or early 2014, especially because she talks about him seeing another girl, and Harry was seeing Kendall Jenner throughout late 2013 into 2014. Since then, Harry released Perfect while he was still in One Direction, and that is clearly about Taylor, and also released 2 Ghosts as a solo artist, which some think is about her too. Weirdly, although this is one of her most famous relationships, there's actually shockingly little information about it. Most of the Harry lyrics in 1989 basically just talk about the pressure of all of the media attention driving them apart. She doesn't really say anything specifically about him or why they broke up. He's known as one of her best exes because she didn't have anything bad to say. However, unlike Taylor Lautner and Tom Hiddleston, she also didn't seem to be regretful or apologetic. So she isn't really blaming herself or Harry for the breakup. It's pretty likely that at least one of the vault tracks will be about Harry. and maybe we will get more tea about their relationship. Like I said, as for the collab rumor, I think it's unlikely. They've bumped into each other a few times in the last few years and seem friendly but not close. Harry has also never done features, so that's probably not going to happen, however much I want it to. Next is Alexander Skarsgård. There's not a ton to say about him, and the chance of another song about him in the vault is almost non-existent, but he is a relevant part of the 1989 lore, so I'll talk about him briefly. Taylor met him on the set of the movie The Giver, and it was rumored at the time that her and Alexander had a fling. They were also spotted going to dinner with the entire cast, and then at a hotel together in 2013. It was widely speculated by fans that Wildest Dreams is about him since she has black hair in both The Giver and the Wildest Dreams music video. Both were set in Africa, and because the song references the guy being so tall, and there aren't many of Taylor's alleged relationships where the guy is so much taller than her. I personally do think that the song is about him. However, it's also possible that nothing happened between them, and Taylor was just fantasizing like she did with Adam Young in Enchanted. Next is Calvin Harris. She didn't actually start dating him until early 2015. But like I said, she has put songs that were written after an album into vaults before. So, who knows? She underwent a pretty significant musical change between 1989 and Reputation. And if there are any songs written in between that are more synth pop and upbeat, I think she'll probably put them in the 1989 vault. Other than Joe Alwyn, Calvin Harris was her longest relationship, but she has never properly written about it. Reputation was void of references to him after they had a very messy breakup, so I'm hoping that either in 1989 or Reputation, there will be something there about this relationship, even if it's about the early happy times. Because of this, there isn't too much info about the relationship. They were very publicly seen together all the time and packed on the PDA, but didn't really share many details about their private life. They were pretty drama-free, at least publicly, until Taylor danced with Tom Hiddleston at the 2016 Met Gala. And you know how it went from there. After their breakup, Calvin was really nasty about Taylor on social media and contributed to her cancellation during the Kim and Kanye situation. He later apologized in GQ saying he snapped because he was under so much pressure, but her fans never forgave him, and he is definitely not one of the exes that she's on good terms with. And that brings us to Karlie Kloss. This is obviously one of the biggest parts of all Taylor Swift lore, and I could easily talk for an hour just about this, but I'll try and keep things relatively brief. They met properly for the first time in November 2013 at the Victoria's Secret fashion show where Taylor was performing. Their relationship never fully blossomed until 2014, when they suddenly were joined at the hip. They were constantly together, paparazzi'd on the street, posting stuff in each other's houses, talking publicly about how much they loved each other, and so on. This obviously contributed to the Gaylor theory that Taylor and Karlie were actually in a romantic relationship, but I'm not even gonna touch that. Throughout summer 2016, they were widely discussed as this pair of superstar BFFs, leading to a lot of public discourse about their relationship. In September 2016, Taylor gave an interview to Rolling Stone and also gave the interviewer a tour of her house. The interviewer later reported that there were tons of pictures of Karlie, and that Taylor referred to one of the bedrooms as Karlie's room. It's worth pointing out that Taylor was single for this entire time, so Karlie essentially replaced having a boyfriend in terms of Taylor's public image, and Karlie became the person she was constantly photographed with and talked about alongside. Even once Taylor started dating Calvin, Karlie was still heavily involved and constantly with Taylor. But their relationship was never as close, especially after Karlie began dating Joshua Kushner, the brother-in-law of Ivanka Trump. And the second and final betrayal happened when Karlie was hanging out with Scooter Braun after he bought Taylor's masters. Taylor didn't attend Karlie's wedding, and in 2020, she slammed Karlie with the lyrics, "When the words of a sister come back in whispers that prove she was not in fact what she seemed, not a twin from your dreams, she's a crook who was caught." And Karlie recently attended the Eras tour and had to buy a ticket because Taylor wouldn't let her in the VIP tent, so I guess the friendship is still definitely off. Obviously, the downfall of their friendship is Reputation territory, but the height of their closeness is definitely relevant to 1989. And I actually think it's pretty likely that there will be a song about her in the vault, considering it was so surprising that there wasn't a song about her in 1989 in the first place. And while we're talking about Karlie, it's also important to reference the Girl Squad. I personally find this one of the worst parts of Taylor's brand throughout her entire career. It wasn't exactly the most likable thing for her to do, but I digress. The Girl Squad has its roots in 2014. There aren't specific members of the Girl Squad. It varied a lot over time, but in 2014, While Taylor was single, she was hanging out a lot with her female friends. And the press were constantly talking about Taylor's different friendships, especially when she was hanging out with a bunch of people all at once. But the Girl Squad really took off in 2015, after 1989's release. But like I said, some of this stuff might be in the 1989 vault. In February 2015, Taylor and Karlie did a joint Vogue shoot where Taylor spoke about prioritizing her female friendships, and for the next couple of months, Taylor was frequently seen hanging out with a bunch of these girls. It became a major part of Taylor's brand and was even talked about by other celebrities, with Elizabeth Olsen joking about being rejected from the squad.
I just talked at her for like a long time, and I think I blew it because we didn't exchange phone numbers or anything.
Right.
But in May, the Girl Squad was seen in all its glory in the Bad Blood music video, featuring a bunch of Taylor's friends. Selena Gomez, Lena Dunham, Soraya, Jessica Alba, Gigi Hadid, Zendaya, Ellie Goulding, Karlie Kloss, Cara Delevingne, Cindy Crawford, Ellen Pompeo, Mariska Hargitay, Lily Aldridge, Hayley Williams, Haley Steinfeld, and Martha Hunt. And there were a bunch of other people who Taylor had been heavily hanging out with, such as the Haim sisters, Jamie King, and Lorde, who didn't appear in the video. The Girl Squad also later appeared on stage with Taylor as guests during the 1989 tour, and they were at Taylor's legendary 4th of July party that year too. One of the most famous examples of the squad was the August 2015 VMAs when they all walked the red carpet with Taylor. Again, I could probably make a whole video on this, so let me know if you want it, but this was not a good moment for Taylor's brand in my opinion, and I'll explain more in the next section. Anyway, after a lot of criticism, for example, the New York Post calling it a cult, the Girl Squad collapsed in summer 2016 during Snakegate, with a ton of the squad members distancing themselves from Taylor for the sake of their own reputations. Again, the collapse of the Girl Squad is more tea that would fit better in the reputation vault, which is part of why I'm so excited for it. But the Girl Squad era is one that could possibly be addressed in the 1989 vault. I do find it slightly unlikely though, considering Taylor has tried to put this behind her. And if she does have any songs about the Girl Squad, she might want to keep them hidden. In the same vein, another key figure in the 1989 lore is Katy Perry. I'll keep it brief, but they had an ongoing feud allegedly starting over John Mayer, who Katy Perry dated after Taylor. Things escalated in 2013, although this was not public information at the time, when Katy hired a bunch of Taylor's dancers from the Red Tour for her own tour, leaving Taylor without dancers since there was allegedly no warning. As far as Katy was concerned, she did nothing wrong and just hired people. As far as Taylor was concerned, Katy had done it vindictively, and she ended up writing Bad Blood about it. Taylor was asked by Rolling Stone who Bad Blood was about, keeping in mind that the dancer thing was not public knowledge yet. And Taylor, without naming anyone, said she would come up to me at award shows and say something and walk away. And I would think, are we friends? Or did she just give me the harshest insult of my life? Taylor went on to make the Bad Blood music video, where Selena plays the villain, who is very clearly meant to be Katy Perry. Me personally, I've always disliked this video since I do think it was too far to make an entire video with all of her celebrity friends to get back at Katy. And Katy slammed Taylor, saying finding it ironic to parade the pit women against women argument about as one unmeasurably capitalizes on the takedown of a woman. And if I'm honest, I think she had a point. Katy would go on to release Swish Swish as a response to Taylor, but the pair made up in 2019. I don't know if anything about Katy will appear in the vault. I'm leaning towards saying it's unlikely, but on the other hand, she did write Bad Blood, so maybe. And this all leads to the final section, Taylor's reputation. It's pretty common among the general public and also Taylor's own fans to think that her reputation started falling apart in 2016, but that's really not true. I mean, the songs Shake It Off and Blank Space addressed the criticism she was getting at the time, mainly for dating too much, and that was before 1989 even released. During the 1989 era, Taylor began getting increasingly criticized for a bunch of more serious issues. Obviously, she was accused of being a fake feminist by Katy Perry in response to the Bad Blood music video. And this all happened while Taylor was having another feud with Nicki. Nicki was upset that Anaconda was not nominated for Video of the Year, and tweeted, "When the other girls drop a video that breaks records and impacts culture, they get that nomination. If your video celebrates women with very slim bodies, you will be nominated for Video of the Year." Taylor responded, telling Nicki not to pit women against other women, which in my opinion was pretty hypocritical. And Nicki responded saying her tweet wasn't about Taylor. Based on the nominees, I think Nicki was probably talking about Taylor, but some of her fans argued that she was referencing Miley Cyrus, who won with Wrecking Ball the year before. Nicki's wider point was about racism within the voting academies, so Taylor should have just stayed out of it. Taylor was also heavily criticized for winning Album of the Year with 1989 over Kendrick's To Pimp a Butterfly, with many also blaming voting academy racism. During the 1989 era, Taylor was condemned for the Girl Squad, with Miley saying that while she likes to hang out with real people, Taylor likes to hang out with musicians, actresses, models, and celebrities. There were other dumb controversies like Taylor being attacked by jealous Harry fans for dating him, and they were super harsh. And possibly the dumbest thing Taylor has ever been criticized for? The Spotify scandal. Taylor had been a vocal critic of streaming services for underpaying artists. She was using her platform to help minor artists who rely on that income, but instead she was accused of being greedy. Zayn Malik even criticized her over it. He responded to a tweet about Miley Cyrus. And it was an interview of Miley saying she doesn't care about getting paid because she already has enough money. Zayn retweeted a tweet saying, "The difference is astounding," comparing Miley with Taylor's comments about Spotify and essentially feeding into the narrative that Taylor was money hungry, leading to a Twitter feud between him and Taylor's then-boyfriend Calvin Harris. Taylor removed her art from Spotify for years in protest of this, and they eventually changed their terms to pay artists more. It's insane because millions of people now make a better and more deserved income from Spotify thanks to Taylor, and yet she never really gets credit for it. Generally speaking, the 2016 drama was kind of a long time coming for Taylor, in the sense that she had been so heavily criticized for years, and it was almost inevitable that it would peak eventually. The narrative around her at the time was basically that she was fake, greedy, and desperate to be seen as popular, which was spurred on by her celebrity 4th of July parties and bringing random celebrities on stage with her during the 1989 tour. All of this criticism was clearly something Taylor was thinking about based on the references to it in Blank Space, Shake It Off, and New Romantics. So I think there's a pretty good chance of seeing more of her feelings about this in the vault. And that wraps up the 1989 lore. I should say that all of the vaults so far have contained one song that seems way off-brand for that album, and I expect 1989 to be the same. I'm sure there will be sounds or subject matter that was not covered in the original release of 1989 at all. And if that happens, then that's just more exciting. Let me know if you want me to make videos breaking down some of this stuff, like Taylor and Karlie's friendship, or the history of the Girl Squad. And please think about checking out some of the other videos on my channel if you want to support me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.